Hello again, First Greer. I want to thank you for all the warm words of welcome that we have received from so many of you. Sarah and I are busy getting ready to join you in Greer, and we are all really excited to get there. I also want to say a big thank you to Pete Peary, who has done such an incredible job during this very difficult year and who has been very helpful to me during this process. Now, you have met me through the PNC slideshow and a short video introduction, so you know a little bit about me and my family. Today, I wanted to talk briefly about my hopes for our journey together. A phrase you will hear me say often is that we are called to walk in the way of Jesus Christ. Now, we know that there is more to walking in the way of Christ than simply following a set of guidelines of right and wrong. At least we know that in our minds. But in practice, however, I believe many of us still view our faith and our relationship with God in this way. And so we see ourselves and others through the lens of our personal guidelines as to what constitutes a good person or a faithful Christian. When we do this, we make faith small, we make God small, and we make Christ's way much less challenging and demanding. During Lent, we remember Jesus' words to his disciples about following him. If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Now, the words taking up your cross would look really out of place on a to-do list for being good. For one thing, it's not exactly clear what this means. However, one thing we can say with certainty about taking up our crosses is that it is not easy. We know that it requires discomfort, difficulty, and sacrifice. And this goes for the individual disciple as well as the church. Therefore, if we, First Presbyterian Church Greer, want to walk in the way of Jesus Christ with ever-deepening faithfulness, we must be willing to sacrifice, to face difficulty and tension, and to be uncomfortable. Now, there's no question that Jesus calls us to the margins. He was born on the margins in Nazareth. He walked with and affirmed the faithfulness of people on the margins, the hemorrhaging woman, the woman at the well, the man unable to pull himself into the waters at Bethsaida when they were troubled, the tax collectors, the Canaanite woman, the hungry thousands who he told to sit down and eat, even though there was only 5 loaves and 2 fish. As his mother Mary proclaimed about her son when he was still in her womb, the powerful will be brought down, the lowly will be lifted up, and the hungry will be filled. John the Baptizer, preparer of Jesus' way, he who was called and faithfully agreed to speak truth even unto death, cried out from the wilderness margins. The voices from the margins teach us the way of Christ. And if we don't live there ourselves and our church is not located there and we don't know the folks that live there, those who struggle with the realities of life on the margins, poverty, exclusion, preventable disease, violence, hunger, inequality, oppression, if we don't know them and we don't know the reality of living on the margins, then engaging there, seeking Jesus there is going to be difficult and uncomfortable. And if we allow the voices of those crying out from the margins to enter our hearts and give them holy discomfort, we will have to sacrifice as well. But the thing about walking in the way of Jesus, about denying ourselves and picking up our crosses, is that the more you do so, the less it feels and looks like sacrifice. Because as Jesus tells us, those who lose their life for my sake will find it. We find our lives by denying ourselves, by losing our lives, by giving ourselves to others. So my hope for our life together, my vision for First Greer is that we challenge one another in love, to seek out ever more diligently the voices in our community that are rarely heard. That we let those voices challenge our hearts and minds. We let them make us uncomfortable. that we listen to their cries for justice, for equality, for food, for shelter, and when we feel ourselves ready to lash out in anger because of the anxiety in our souls born from hearing hard truth, that we would stop and think, that we would deny ourselves and pick up our crosses. For was it not our woes, our fallenness, our pain that Jesus carried on the cross? Was it not us whom he carried on his shoulder on that harrowing walk to Golgotha? And is that not how we are called to walk as well? Where and how he walked? Is it not the woes and the pain and the difficulties of our neighbors that is our cross to bear? Everything that I have seen and heard about the people of First Greer tells me that you are an incredibly loving and welcoming congregation. I can sense the deep love you have for one another and for your community. You know how to love, how to show hospitality, how to nurture and care for one another. You know already that God calls us to look outward, not inward. And so my prayer is that we dedicate ourselves anew to walking in the way of Christ. That as we begin to come together again, we don't look only to our needs, but to the needs of the world. After what we have been through the last year, the need is immense. And we will need to lean on the love of Christ and on one another, that we might be empowered and strengthened to go to the margins and meet Christ there. I am so excited to join you, to serve alongside you, to be your pastor. May God bless you and keep you.